Hi dear colleagues, I welcome you on behalf of Child Protection and Health and Safety Committee of English Language School. The world is changing and so are we. This is a virtual module of child protection training. Please pay attention because you may be asked many questions during the session and at the end of the session. This module has been designed to provide you with an overview of child protection and appropriate conduct as a teacher in English language private school. We value your contribution and commitment as a teacher in our module. This training should take approximately 15 minutes to complete. Please ensure you have access to your notebook and a pen to use as an additional resource. You may stop this video at any time to consult your notes and to write the notes. Learning outcomes for this module include creating an awareness and basic understanding of child protection, knowing what your responsibilities are in relation to working with and protecting children, and finally, ensuring your conduct is appropriate when interacting with children. Our core belief as a member of English language private school is that we are committed to upholding the values of our school, including providing safe and supportive education environment for all children. As adults, we are all responsible for protecting children. It is important that you are aware of your responsibilities. If you observe or have been told something by a student that needs to be shared with a staff member, we are now going to look at sources of harm and abuse types. Child abuse is an action towards the child that results in harm to the child. Students can experience harm from a number of different sources. For example, harm from a person associated with the school staff member, a visitor, or another adult. A child can be harmed from family members or relatives of the student. This includes a parent, a sibling, or another relative. A child can also be harmed from another person in the community, such as neighbor, a family friend, or a stranger. And finally, a student may hurt themselves using self-harming behaviors. Abuse types can be divided into 4 different categories: sexual abuse or likely sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. Sexual abuse occurs when another person engages in sexual behavior with a student and the other person bribes, coerces, threatens, or is violent toward the student. The student has less power than the other person, or there is significant disparity between the student and the other person in intellectual capacity and or maturity. Likely sexual abuse occurs when a student has not been sexually abused, but unless someone intervenes, it is more probable than not that they will be sexually abused. Sexual abuse can involve touching, kissing, fondling a student in a sexual manner, exposing a child to pornography, or taking sexual images of a child, making sexually suggestive comments or gestures towards a student. Physical abuse refers to any non accidental use of a physical force against a child by another person that results in significant harm to the child. Examples include, but are not limited to, hitting a child, punching, biting, poisoning. The definition of physically abusive behavior extends to the fabrication, exaggeration, and inducing of illness symptoms in the child. Emotional or psychological abuse is the persistent emotional ill treatment of a child, which causes severe and persistent adverse effects on the child's emotional development. Examples of emotional abuse include, but are not limited to, constant criticism, humiliation, withholding praise or affection, and finally, exposure of the child to family violence. Neglect is the persistent failure to meet the child's basic physical and emotional necessities of life, such that the child's emotional and physical development are affected. Basic needs include housing, food, adequate clothing, personal hygiene, and hygienic living conditions. Inadequate supervision or placing the child in dangerous environment are all forms of neglect. Students experiencing neglect may frequently be late or absent from school, be missing lunches, and present as tired and unable to participate in school routine. Let's think about this question. The answer is false. It is an unfortunate fact that the majority of child abusers are known to the child. Here is another question. The answer is false again. Both men and women can do offend against children. We are now going to look at how to respond when a student discloses abuse or harm. It is rare that a child will directly disclose abuse. However, if this occurs, there are a number of actions that can assist you and the child. Firstly, don't panic. Then, listen to the child, be calm and patient. Let the child use their own words and don't ask leading questions. Then reassure the child, for example, I'm really glad you talked to me. You are not in trouble. It is okay to seek help. Then respect the child. You could say, I'll be honest with you and not make promises I cannot keep. I need to discuss what you have shared with me with someone else. Then you need to inform the form tutor or child protection officer or the principal of the information that's been shared with you. And finally, seek support. Dealing with child protection matters can be confronting. Ensure you receive support. if you feel you need to. Please take a few moments to complete the exercise in your notebooks. Draw a line from the statement to the corresponding abuse type. The answers to this exercise can be found in the description below. The next section of the training is looking at professional boundaries. As our own conduct is an essential part of our interaction with children, it is important that you familiarize yourself with all the relevant code of conduct documents that provides guidance in relation to your role. They are key messages around behavior expectations, including physical contact, communication, and being alone with a student. Professional boundaries can be broadly classified into three categories. A physical boundary relates to appropriate physical contact between staff members or volunteers and students. In appropriate circumstances, a violation would be pushing a student, grabbing a student, using physical force to ensure a child cooperates, using an object like a ruler, a book, or a whiteboard marker to manage student. An emotional boundary relates to the nature of the appropriate professional relationships between staff members or volunteers and students. For example, a violation would be making inappropriate comments about a student and or their family, shaming, embarrassing a student, using sarcasm or unprofessional criticism. Finally, a behavioral boundary determines the appropriate behaviors expected by a staff member or volunteers towards a student. A boundary violation would include having inappropriate interaction for students, inappropriate use of social media, or disclosing inappropriate personal information. Can you identify the inappropriate behaviors? Swearing in front of but not at a student is inappropriate. Giving a student your personal phone number is inappropriate. And calling a student an idiot is also inappropriate. We are now going to look at how we identify concerns about a student and what actions we need to take. So, how do we respond to concerns about a student? Firstly, we need to identify the concerns. This can occur via a number of ways. For example, the child tells you something or you observe behavior out of character or an injury which is suspicious. You may also receive information from another person or another child who tells you that they have concerns for another student. If you have concerns about a student, you must inform a staff member. Normally, this would be the form tutor, unless your concerns relate to the form tutor's behavior. In those situations, you must take your concerns directly to the school principal. We are going to look at a couple of these examples now. You walk past a classroom and see a staff member alone with year 2 student. The student is sitting on the staff member's knee and the staff member has their arm around the student's shoulder. Both are laughing. Do you wait to see if something like this happens again? Do you do nothing? There's probably nothing wrong here. Well, do you speak with the principal about your concerns? The correct answer is that you need to inform the principal about what you have seen, and then they can take the appropriate action to ensure the safety of the student and that the staff member is maintaining their professional boundaries. Here is another case scenario. During a lesson, a student discloses that they do not want to go home this afternoon as they are frightened of their father. The student says that the father gets angry when he gets back. He breaks things and he threatens to hurt his mother. You should tell the student that it is okay. Your father probably does not mean it, or do you tell the student that you are glad he shared his concerns with you, but you need to discuss this with another person who can help him, and then you inform the form tutor or the principal? Finally, do you ask the student lots of questions about what is happening at home? The correct answer is that you tell the student that you are glad he shared his concerns. You need to then inform someone who can help him, like the form tutor or the principal. It is important to know that UAE has a specific law which deals with child protection. Federal Law number 3 of 2016 concerning child rights, also known as Wadima's Law, stresses that all children must be provided with appropriate living standards, access to health services, education, equal opportunities in essential services and facilities without any kind of discrimination. The law protects children against all forms of negligence, exploitation, physical, and psychological abuses. It is worth mentioning here that all the new school staff members are required to submit a police clearance report within first week of their appointment to the HR department.